Hey everybody, I want to talk about why it is sometimes they just can't let you get some sleep, right? Why can't they just shut up and let you sleep? I always thought it was just a manipulation tactic, right? Just to mess with you and just to mess with you. And that is still true. That is a valid reason that they do it. But there's also something else that I had not considered, and I got to give credit where it's due. There's an awesome channel called A Shrink for Men. It's a female psychologist or psychiatrist, a female mental health professional. I'm not entirely sure of all her credentials, but she's great. We've all been there, where you're trying to get some sleep, and then all of a sudden, the person laying in bed next to you just starts just endlessly talking. And I'll be the first to say, I'm pretty guilty of being a talker myself. Case in point, all the videos I make. I don't sit there and nag my wife while she's trying to sleep. Okay? Once she's ready to go to bed, I shut up, because I know she wants to sleep. And I want my life, so I let her sleep. But we've all been there where you're trying to go to sleep, and they go into the most random, circular, monologue. You're not even sure if they're talking to you. They just start talking and talking and talking. And then they want you to have the conversation with them while you're trying to sleep. And then they get mad when you're not having the conversation. So why does this happen? What's behind all this? It goes into part of the disorder that is geared more towards the borderline end of the cluster B group. It has to do with the fear of abandonment. When you go to sleep before they do, technically you are abandoning them, because you are now leaving the scene. You're leaving them alone with their thoughts. And the thing is, if they're being haunted and tormented by their thoughts, then that fear of abandonment kicks in. Whether or not it's a conscious action, that's what kicks it in. And for those of you who have actually done, digging into these disorders, the second I say that's the fear of abandonment, I'm sure that the dots connected for a few of you. That's what's behind it. Borderlines in general, so narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, can usually both arise from the same attachment style. So the attachment style is disorganized attachment. You can think of it in terms of, if you're a child and you have this abusive parent who's a narcissistic parent who's so loving, so caring, so absolutely helicopter parent, but then when you do wrong, so vicious and so quick to punish. Children cannot reconcile, you are my parent, you are my guardian, my protector, you're the adult in my life, you're the unconditional love, and you're hurting me. Children cannot cycle between the two very well, and that's where you get the concept of splitting, otherwise known as whole object relations and object constancy. It's because the adults in their lives growing up cannot be both at once. They cannot be somebody who's loving them and caring for them and somebody who's hurting them all at once. And so it becomes difficult for their little brains to process, and the overall result is they have to process people as either one or the other. And that, growing up, that leads to much deeper challenges later in life. Borderline, so they have a deep-rooted fear of abandonment. And that fear of abandonment can come from a number of different places. I think one of the biggest contributors to it is with the splitting and with borderlines. A borderline personality does not have a well-developed, or if at all, they don't have a mechanism to recover from emotional injury. When their feelings get hurt, when they feel slighted, when they feel offended, they cannot get over it. They can't. They get upset, and the longer they're upset, the more upset they get, and it kicks off this ever-swelling, ever-growing, ever-increasing level of being offended and having a temper tantrum, going into, I'm not going to use the term narcissistic rage, but they just escalate and escalate and escalate until they get their ass kicked, or until somebody assumes the role of emotional regulator to calm them down and talk them down, right? It's the quintessential scene from movies where, you've got like the bully jock, the athlete, the football team captain, and then you've got the little chess team, little kid, the main character. And whenever you feel slighted, like the jock, the bully, all of his little buddies hold him back, and he's like, come on, man, no, just let it go. He's not worth it. He's not worth it, man. And he's like, you're right. He's not worth it. Right? Unless people step in like that, then the situation just escalates until usually somebody gets their ass kicked. So there's kind of sort of this, they've learned that without the presence of somebody there to help regulate them and keep them calm, that's kind of sort of where that fear comes. At least I think this is my opinion, based on the experience I've had with people that are borderline. It's sort of like when you have somebody there who's, you hear phrases like, oh, they're my rock, I don't know what I would do without you. You're my rock, you're always there. You always find a way to make me feel better. Those kinds of compliments. When you hear stuff like that, that's actually a red flag for you that this person isn't the most stable emotionally. Now, I'm not saying like, if you hear it once or twice, yeah, that's a good thing. I'm talking about the people that you hear it from as a steady, like consistent theme. Right? Like if you weren't around, this person would fucking fly off the handle, right? So when you have that inability to regulate your own emotions and recover from an emotional injury, when you're the one that goes to sleep next to a person like that, they're losing their sense of security. They're losing their sense of security. They're losing their regulator. That causes anxiety. That leads to anxiety because now they're alone with their thoughts. What if they think a hurtful thought? Think about that. If they've been having a rough time lately, a shitty time, and they're generally unhappy, right? We all have unpleasant thoughts. What happens if I have unpleasant thoughts and you're not here to make me feel better? Then it's just going to spiral out of control. And that's how you end up with these long circular conversations way late at night. It's like, why the hell? Why are you telling me this now? Why are we talking about this now when I'm trying to fucking sleep? Why now? It's like, I don't know. I haven't worried about it until now. That's why. They haven't worried about it because you're there and present, so they don't have to worry about the thoughts because you're there in your role of emotional regulator. But then when the sun goes down and you're about to go to sleep and they're still thinking about it and chewing on it and you're about to exit the picture, now all of a sudden they got anxiety from hell. And they got to cling to their regulator so that they can still be happy. Now this is something that, like I said in the beginning, it comes more from the borderline side of stuff, but you can still see it with narcissism. Borderline disorders and narcissism are very similar, at least in from the attachment style that they come from. The difference is a narcissist has a very fragile way to overcome emotional injury. It's fragile, it's delicate, but it's by asserting themselves to be superior in some way. So they found that if they give themselves something to be proud of about themselves, then they can be proud of that, and that gives them a feel good on command, right? You push a button and I feel good about something, right? And it doesn't quite do the job. Well, I can feel good about this all the time. I figure if I do these things, then I can always feel good about myself, right? But sometimes it's not enough. So in order to feel even better, I have to think about these things and then also subvert people so that the gap is even higher, so that I can feel even better. So, but it still comes from that disorganized attachment during development. And like I said, the example I gave is just one example of disorganized attachment. There are others. It's just what I'm most familiar with because I had a lot of that in my life growing up. Not just my parents, but both of their families were like that. I come from two families that are overwhelmingly cluster B. It's amazing. The saving grace for me was that when I turned 18, I moved 550 miles away and put myself through the university and did it by myself because I didn't want to come back to that town and be stuck in the town I grew up in. So I had a lot of motivating factors to succeed in school. Most of which were my family. So, I hope this makes sense. If you think about it, that's where, if you've ever experienced this, and if you yourself do it, this should be a red flag for yourself. If you're watching this video and you think, oh, well, that kind of sounds like me, I kind of do this sometimes too. It's like, well, then you, that's not to say that you're borderline or that you're a narcissist. It's overall, it falls under the umbrella of emotional instability. It doesn't mean crazy. Emotional instability simply means you don't have 100% the ability to control any emotion you're feeling at any given time, right? Most people have some degree of emotional instability, unless you're a robot, right? We all have our little periods of emotional instability, but that's exactly what it is. But if you find a trend where you're pretty okay all throughout the day until your partner starts to go to sleep, and then all the worries start to creep into your head, that's why. You're very dependent, you're codependent on your partner to regulate you emotionally. And so that should be a red flag for yourself, that you really need to work on yourself in this area and learn how to gain some control over your own triggers, your own emotional health, mental and emotional health. You can always do better. You can always improve yourself. There's always room for improvement, and there's always a better way of doing things. There always is. And I'm about out of time. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Do please like, comment, or share. I love hearing stories. Tell me any stories about somebody you're with who just wouldn't let you go to sleep. And I'll see you on the next video.